You have heard the same false fact 3 times, and the 4th hearing now feels true. Why would your brain count repetition as evidence? Maybe you are gullible, but then why does the feeling persist even when you know the claim is false? Maybe you are distracted, but then why does the effect show up in alert, focused people as well? Neither answer survives contact with the data. So what is left? Your brain is not confusing repetition with evidence because it is broken. It is doing exactly what it was built to do. It is using familiarity as a shortcut for truth. That shortcut explains advertising, office gossip, and affirmations. It also explains why a simple experiment in a single session can make you rate a completely made-up claim as more true. This is the illusory truth effect, and once you see it, you will never fully trust a repeated sentence again. The first rigorous demonstration came in 1977. Lynn Hasher and her colleagues gave participants a list of statements and asked them to rate how true each one sounded. Some statements were true. Some were false, but plausibly false, like the claim that the human body uses more energy during sleep than during walking. 2 weeks later, the same people came back. They rated the statements again. The ones they had seen before, whether true or false, scored higher on truthfulness the second time. Just seeing a statement once, weeks earlier, was enough to shift their judgment. The participants were not consciously relying on the first session. They were not fishing for memory. They just felt, calmly and confidently, that the repeated statements were true. And this finding has been replicated dozens of times since. Does being warned in advance help? In 1992, a research team ran a version where participants were explicitly told the experiment was about how false information becomes believable. They explained the illusion before it could occur. The effect still appeared. People who could name the exact moment they had seen a repeated sentence, people who knew it was repeated and might be false, still nudged their truth rating upward. One detail stood out. When participants could clearly remember seeing a statement earlier, they actually rated it as more true, not less. The conscious memory of hearing something before did not act as a warning label. It acted as evidence of credibility. You would think that remembering the source would help you discount it. It does the opposite. Awareness is not armor. So why does one glance at a sentence change your judgment? The answer lives in a feeling called processing fluency. Every time you encounter a word, a face, or a claim, your brain processes it slightly faster the next time. That faster processing produces a subtle positive sensation. You do not notice the sensation. You notice the judgment that rides on top of it. The claim feels easier to understand, and your brain interprets ease as truth. This is why the effect appears even with meaningless statements. In one classic experiment, people rated the same sentence as more true when it was printed in a clean, easy-to-read font than when it was printed in a messy one. Nothing about the content changed. Only the ease of reading changed. And ease, apparently, is the currency your brain spends on truth. Why would evolution build a shortcut that makes repetition look like truth? Because in the world your brain evolved in, repetition did track reality. The rustle in the grass that comes before an attack happens again and again. The berry that made you sick last year looks exactly like the berry you see this year. The voice you hear often is the voice you can predict. In that environment, having encountered something before was excellent evidence that it was real and stable. The heuristic saved energy and saved lives. The modern world breaks that equation. Advertising, political messaging, and viral content reproduce the signal without the reality. Your ancestors never met a slogan repeated 40 times in a week. You meet several before lunch. The evolutionary assumption that repeated means reliable is now being exploited by design. The effect has limits, and the limits are revealing. Does anything break the spell? Absurd statements do not get the same boost. If someone repeats that the moon is made of green cheese, your stored knowledge overrides the familiarity signal. The illusion works best on the plausible. The false claims that gain the most ground are the ones that resemble the truth just enough for repetition to nudge you. In experiment after experiment, the more generally believable a statement is, the larger the repetition boost. This makes sense. Your brain weighs the fluency signal against what you already know. When they clash hard, knowledge wins. When the difference is subtle, fluency takes over. Most dangerous falsehoods are not ridiculous. They are near-miss facts, bent just slightly out of shape. That subtle bend is exactly where this bias does its quiet work. Another limit: effort. Some studies pay participants for accurate answers. Paying attention and being motivated reduces the effect. It does not eliminate it. A residual boost persists even in people who are trying hard to be correct. This is why the advice to just fact-check everything is incomplete. You can fact-check the claims you notice. You cannot fact-check the thousands of repeated phrases that drift through your attention every day. The bias operates before your reasoning system is even switched on. By the time a claim reaches conscious judgment, it has already been seasoned by how many times you have met it. You are not rating a fact. You are rating a memory of a phrase, and you are calling that memory truth. Where does this bias live in a normal day? Start with advertising. Advertisers understood this a century before the scientists named it. A slogan is not built to argue. It is built to be encountered. 9 out of 10 dentists recommend works because the claim is repeated, not because you have read the survey. The first time you hear a product claim, you may doubt it. The 10th time, doubt softens. The 50th time, you are correcting a friend who doubts it. This is not persuasion in the logical sense. It is exposure doing the work of evidence. The familiarity signal does not store the source. It stores the sentence. So the same claim on a billboard, in a forum comment, and on a podcast adds up in a single mental account. Every repetition deposits trust, no matter who is speaking. The same machinery runs in offices and kitchens. A rumor does not need evidence. It needs 3 tellings. You tell a colleague that layoffs are coming. They tell someone else. Someone tells you. By the 3rd repetition, the rumor carries a patina of consensus. It feels like everyone is saying it, and your brain reads that as it must be true. In reality, there has been only one original speaker moving in a circle. This is why rumors survive contact with logic. Familiarity is not diluted by contradiction. It is diluted only by a competing, louder story. The person who says, "I keep hearing this," is describing the exact mechanism. The hearing is the persuasion. The effect also points inward. Affirmations, mantras, and self-talk use the same circuit. When you repeat "I am confident" every morning, the sentence becomes more fluent, and fluency is read as truth. This can be put to genuine use, but it cuts both ways. Repeated negative self-talk, "I always fail," wins the same prize. The more times a statement about yourself crosses your mind, the more factual it feels. Your brain does not audit the source. The source is you, and the repetition is yours, and the bias counts exposure, not accuracy. Your inner monologue is a broadcast station, and every episode strengthens the signal. Whether the content is true or not is, to the mechanism, irrelevant. This is why misinformation moves the way it does. Each share is a repetition. Each screenshot is a repetition. A headline on your feed, a screenshot in a group chat, a line in a video comment, a mention the next day. 4 exposures across 4 platforms in one afternoon. The format changes, but the sentence stays the sentence. Your brain does not keep a ledger of platforms. It keeps a counter. 1 phrase, 4 meetings. The phrase feels true. The most dangerous claims do not need to be logical. They need to be encountered enough. What used to require a word-of-mouth chain over months can now be accomplished in a single afternoon. The repetition engine has been industrialized. Here is the cruel add-on. Corrections can backfire. When you hear that there was never a shortage of eggs, your mind still processes the word shortage. The correction has just added 1 more exposure to the original claim while arguing against it. Researchers call this the continued influence effect. A myth that has been debunked survives because the debunk rehearses the myth. The most effective corrections lead with the fact and avoid repeating the lie. But human instinct does the opposite. We pin the lie up, label it false, and leave it on the wall. Every glance is another repetition. The label says false. The counting machine underneath does not care. The repetition is working silently below the arguments. Now back to the promised experiment. The short version fits in one session. Show someone a list of a few dozen statements about history, geography, and odd inventions. Some are true, some are fabricated. None is obviously absurd. Ask them to rate how interesting each statement is. Take a short break. 20 minutes is enough. Then present a second list. Half the statements are new. Half appeared in the first list. Ask the participant to rate truthfulness. Consistently, the repeated statements score higher. The effect appears with a gap of minutes, hours, days, or weeks. It appears even when participants are warned to watch for repeats. A claim does not need to be proven. It needs to be encountered. One meeting makes it slightly true. 2 meetings make it more true. 3 meetings, and it starts to feel like everyone knows it. So what can you actually do with this? You cannot switch off the automatic feeling. The fluency boost happens before you can intervene. But you can change how much you trust it. When you catch yourself thinking everyone says this, ask a sharper question. Says or repeats. When a statement feels true because it is familiar, that is not evidence. It is a memory of a memory. The practical strategy is not to slow down every sentence, which is impossible. It is to install a filter on the moments that matter. Big decisions, strong opinions, claims you plan to repeat. In those moments, ask one question. Could this be true if I had heard it only once? If the answer is no, the effect may be doing the work. You are not gullible for feeling it. You are running software that was designed before the invention of printing. The single-session experiment shows how little the machine needs. 1 exposure nudges judgment. 3 exposures move it further, and there is no clean escape hatch. This phrase, illusory truth effect, is now a thing you have encountered multiple times. Every future hearing will make it feel slightly more established. That is the trap, even in the act of understanding the trap. You cannot disable the shortcut, but you can stop treating your own certainty as proof. Next time a claim feels true, separate the feeling from the fact. Do not ask whether it is true. Ask why you feel that it is true. The first question lets memory answer for you. The second question makes the machinery visible, and a machine you can see is the only one you have a chance of overriding.